sweeties, how are you doing? Welcome to Cimnanya, and thank you all so much for all the love and support you shower me here with. I am grateful. So today we'll be talking something very important, and it's about this palm colored man. I don't know where he is from, and he actually gave full details about how white South Africans became very rich. And looking at this, I don't know, but I see that I feel like there is so much relationship between African American, like the struggles, the way they took a lot from African Americans are the same thing they did to Black South Africans. And they are always quick to tell Black people that 50 years of democracy is not enough for you to grow up and make amends or do better for yourselves. But then when you look around what is going on, Black economic empowerment is nothing to white economic empowerment. Some of them, during the apartheid and all that, a lot were taken away from the Black people, which he actually mentioned. And then he talked, I see a lot of people talking in the comment section saying that it is our hard work. So it means that the white people, according to what they are saying, that they worked so hard for everything they achieved. And also we're saying that they also went to school. Let's get into this video.
How did white South Africans get so wealthy? South Africa is the most unequal society in the world. And it freaks me out how many South Africans complain about BEE, or they say 30 years of democracy, isn't that enough for you? In exactly that accent. And how little most South Africans know about economic apartheid, how far colonial and apartheid governments went to lift up white people and suppress people of color for hundreds of years. The simple truth is, Black economic empowerment is nothing compared to white economic empowerment. Your parents may have worked hard, very hard, but the paler their skin, the more they benefited from extraordinary government economic aid. And here's when old people say, oh no, but what about this Black person who's wealthy or this Black person who's made a lot of money? But here's the thing, right? Bad systems always hide behind miracle cases, the radical exceptions that make it out of a bad system even though it doesn't support them at all. They try to make it look like the exception, the miracle, is the average person in the system. And everybody who doesn't make it, well, that's their fault. It's not the system's fault. So here's the issue with white economic empowerment, how white people benefited from extraordinary government economic intervention. You know that speaking about apartheid is hard. So much of it happened off the record, people dispute it. So I'm going to make this super simple. All I'm going to do is tell you about a handful of apartheid policies that were enacted on the record, no doubt about it, that advantaged white people and oppressed Black people. So let's start in 1910, when the Union of South Africa was formed. Literally, the country was invented for the first time, and government policies affected everybody in the country. The Second South African War had just ended. It was between the Brits and the Boers, and the Brits won. But they wanted to unite all white people together, especially Afrikaners, because they'd been fighting each other and killing each other for years. And so immediately, they made it that no people of color could vote. Instantly, unite the white people, only they can vote, only they can control the making of the new country. Then in 1913, the Land Act made it illegal, impossible for Black people to own land outside of reserves. That meant 93% of all land in South Africa was only available to white people. Then, in the early 1920s, poor white Afrikaners protested that most of big industry was dominated by British companies, and those companies were hiring skilled Black workers over them. In response, the government funded enormous public works programs, like building the Hartbeespoort Dam, and they only hired poor white workers. They literally made programs to make jobs for poor white, particularly Afrikaner workers. Also in 1925, the Wage Act made a minimum wage for white workers but not Black workers, and the government offered incentives to companies applying for tenders. The more white workers you employ, the more likely you are to win work. Let's jump to 1948, when the National Party returns to power and formalizes apartheid for the very first time. And the first thing they do is direct massive funding to social programs and welfare grants for poor white people, and slashed funding for people of color across the board. In 1950, the Group Areas Act stopped Black people from moving through South Africa freely. They had to get permission to go places, always on white people's terms, and this made it incredibly hard to find work. In the 1950s and 60s, the apartheid government fixed Black people's pensions, which meant that as inflation increased, the value of those pensions got less. At the same time, white people's pensions increased dramatically. Black South Africans were forced into the Bantu Education Act in 1953, where they were literally only taught how to do basic, unskilled labor. They were reduced to servitude. The Nats worked incredibly hard to promote white, specifically Afrikaner-owned business. You know why the Nats had African language radio stations through the SABC? To make money for white people off of black people. In the 60s, the apartheid government handed out millions of radios and ran the African language stations themselves. Obviously, they used it for propaganda to try and control the flow of information around apartheid, but they also gave ad space reaching this massive new audience to white, especially Afrikaner-owned businesses at knockdown rates. And some of the biggest companies in South Africa today started that way. Afrikaner-owned, benefiting from ad space on African language radio stations that the apartheid government handed them. I could go on, you get the point. And you know what I said earlier about the average experience showing what the system actually does? Well, let's look at what the apartheid system did to South Africa. In 1996, the first ever truly national census was taken, where all South Africans were asked what the reality of their lives were like. Because of apartheid, the 1996 census found that 21% of black South Africans lived in informal housing. That's over 6 million people. And you know how many white South Africans lived in informal housing in 1996? 0.1%. More than 7 million black South Africans in 1996 had no access to piped water. 97% of white South Africans had access to piped water. Let's talk about refuse removal. 59% of black South Africans had no access to regular refuse removal in 1996, more than 18 million people. 92% of white South Africans had access. Electricity. 56% of black South Africans had no access to electricity in 1996 at all, more than 17 million people. 99.6% of all white South Africans had good access to electricity. That is the reality that economic apartheid created in this country. A few weeks ago, there was a news headline. It said, "South Africa not ready for a white president." And you know how sometimes you see a news headline and you think, what a waste. Like, why did you waste the ink and paper on that? Obviously, South Africa's not ready for a white president. Although it does make sense when you see who said that quote. It was the leader of the Freedom Front Plus. Sorry, die Vryheidsfront Plus. This quote actually annoys me so much because it feels like it's implying that South Africans who aren't ready for a white president are somehow being unreasonable or should change or should think again. I mean, seriously, after centuries of abuse and oppression based on race by white people, and now what? They want trust. They want forgive and forget. That show got cancelled. Trust is earned, and I would say it's pretty damn reasonable to wait a little while longer to see if that trust is deserved. So, that's the issue with white economic empowerment. Thank you so much for watching this episode of The Issue with Dan Corder. We release one episode every single week on YouTube, and we also have a podcast, which you can find on all the streaming platforms, and you can find our socials in the video bio. Please like, subscribe, spread the word. See you soon.
Oh my goodness. Do you know what? I don't know how I was just passing by and I saw this and I was like, I am definitely bringing this here because sometimes I feel like there is like almost the same thing going on with African Americans. Also, like what happened to them also is happening to South Africans. And now listening to this, it's just amazing how some of them are so quick to come out to defend themselves because, like, you know, you all already know that South Africans, like the white South Africans, are like, you know, have it easier than the black South Africans after apartheid and the rest of it. And then I was going through the comments to see what people are talking about and how they are reacting to it, only for me to find out that so many white people also came out to say, I am white, I am not wealthy at all. So people were like asking him, where do you live? If you are South African, because I also learned that some of them are fleeing, South Africans are moving to Israel and all that. Some also converted to Jews and the rest of it, like even after this. And I like, you know, I read through something like that, right? So now looking at these, and some of them are saying, I am not rich. What happened to the what happened to the money that I am supposed to have? But then when you look at it, majority of the white South Africans live comfortably. And some of the places where they live, black people are not also supposed to live there. Like they have their own quarters, everything, the lands they stole from people and all that. And that reminds me, I remember there was a video that I saw some time ago where some of them are lying about how some palm-colored South Africans are being murdered and died in their farms and all that, only to find out that the reverse was the case, right? Because South Africans came for the palm-colored person that said that. And then I saw also a lot of them are saying that we worked for our money, we are not lazy. So it means that they are also thinking that the black people are lazy and they are the hardworking ones. When they were able to, I mean, like, what made them, how do I say that? What gave them edge above black people is because of the things they stole. It is because of the things they took away from the indigenous. And some of them are trying to defend what their ancestors did and all that. It is just amazing how, like, all these people are really very quick to tell you that, where is my wealth? And the privileges they have. And a lot of people are asking them, do you have access to clean water? Do you have access to, where do you live? Do you have access to electricity? Because there are so many also people in South Africa, that black South Africans, that do not have access to this. But they have it all in full. Some of them, they have their own market. They have where they work. They are even during, like, if there is employment, they are the first people to be considered before every other person. I mean, any other black person. And sometimes I think this is the balance Malema actually wants to restore. But I don't know. How am I supposed to know? But I need people from South Africans to, like, let us know about it. If this is what Malema wants to restore and all that, probably he wants a better life for every other person and all that. And the difference is clear. Sincerely speaking, the difference is clear when you see palm-colored person that is indigenous to a lot. I don't know how they say, but like palm-colored person that claims South African and the black person, you can tell that they are majorly the ones enjoying the wealth. And then the black people are the ones slaving away for them. And I still remember there was a time I read through something where some places in South Africa, you cannot go there as a South African or as a black person if a white palm-colored person is not with you. And that really sucks how slavery has eaten deep into, because this is slavery mentality, sincerely speaking. If it is not slavery mentality, I don't know how someone that is from a particular place will go somewhere to eat or drink and they are telling you that you cannot eat from here except you are being accompanied by a palm-colored person. It's just like, I see all their comments. They are saying it is just hard work and education. And then it is more like them trying to tell you that they work harder than the black people, right? And their education is like the same education they have is also not the same education black people also have. And some are saying hard work with no corruption. And you know what? All I can say is all these are lies. It is all lies from the pit of hell. And some are even saying, stop talking about it. It's going to go away. How is not talking about it going to make it stay back or not go away? Man, sincerely speaking, you know one thing I have learned so far from African Americans, you all are very diverse and you all are learned. I have been able to learn a lot, especially on TikTok, by following black content creators, and that has really opened my eyes to so many things. Because when I see your struggles and how you all are always, how do I say that? You all are always very fast to know when a colonizer is trying to be smart. You all are, it is so easy for you to predict that. It is so easy for you to say that. And when you say that, you signal. And then when you all signal, it is left for people you are signaling, you signal to accept or decline. But you all, the one thing I have noticed so far from everything going on is that you all see ahead of every other person. And that is something that I appreciate. I appreciate so much about you people. And that, really, that is it. You all see far ahead. But then I really do hope that my own people, especially Africans, because as it stands, most Africans, some of them really do not know a lot about race, the season, and all that. Some of them because probably they haven't been abroad and they haven't done a whole lot with some colored people. So when you tell them it is like a folk tale to them. But you all, because you have lived it, you all can tell when they make a move. And then I hope they have a wake-up call all over, because if they decided to let history repeat itself, it is going to be very, very, it's going to come harder, not even hard, harder on them. Thank you all so much, and see you all in my next video. Bye for now.